Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. On today's tutorial, I will demonstrate how to draft, cut and sew a 3-layer skirt using the slash and spread technique. This method will give you more control over the amount of fabric that you will use for the project. You can decide to use more fabric or less. It depends on the quantity of fabric that you are working with and the style line of the outfit that you intend to make. Hi, my name is Ayo and welcome to 011 Clothing Tutorials. On this channel, I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So now, let's get right into the tutorial. Thank you! I'll be working with the following items: pattern paper, tracing wheel, calculator. Ideally, a pencil should be used to draft a pattern, but for tutorial purpose, I'll be making use of this green marker pen, tape measure, paper scissors, rulers and curves, sellotape, and pins. I'll be working with the following measurements: waist circumference 35 inches, hip circumference 43 inches, waist to hips 10 inches. Since I'm working with a skirt for a dress, the full length of the dress that I intend to make is 45 inches. The length of the bodice is 16 inches. So the length of the skirt should be 45 inches minus 16 inches, and this is equal to 29 inches. I will now go ahead to draft the basic skirt pattern. So I have here my pattern paper, which I've already spread out on the table, and I've already gone ahead to draw a margin of 2 inches at the top and on the left hand side of the pattern paper. I will now go ahead to draw a rectangular box. I will draft both the front and the back skirt patterns within this rectangular box. To estimate the width of the rectangular box, I will use the formula hip circumference divided by 2 plus additional 2 inches for ease, and this goes for the 43/2, and this goes to 23.5 inches. So on the upper starting line, I'll go ahead to measure and mark 23.5 inches like this. I will connect these points together with a vertical line. The length of the rectangular box should be my desired skirt length, which is 29 inches. So I'll go ahead to measure and mark 29 inches vertically like this. I will now go ahead to complete the rectangular box like this. Now I'll go ahead to divide the rectangular box into 2 equal halves. This side will be the center back, while this other side will be the center front. So this rectangular box will contain both the front and the back skirt patterns. The waist to hip measurement is 10 inches. So I'll go ahead to measure and mark 10 inches from the upper starting line downwards like this. I will now square a horizontal line across like this, and this line is the hip line. Next, I will estimate the waist value by using the formula waist circumference plus 1 inch for ease divided by 4 plus additional 1 inch for the waist dart, and this is equal to 35 plus 1 all over 4, and this is equal to 10 inches. So on this line, which is the waistline, I'll go ahead to measure and mark 10 inches starting from the center back and the center front respectively. Next, I will estimate my hip circumference plus 1 inch for ease divided by 4, and this is equal to 43 plus 1 all over 4, and this is equal to 11 inches. So on the hip line, starting from the center back and the center front, I'll go ahead to measure and mark 11 inches like this. I will now go ahead to connect these points together with my ruler. At the hem of the skirt, I will go ahead to measure and mark the 11 inches that are estimated for the hips, starting from the center back and the center front respectively. I will now connect these points together with my ruler. So it is now time to draw the waist dart. To know the position of the waist dart, I will divide my bust span measurement by 2, and this is equal to 8 divided by 2, and this is equal to 4 inches. So on the waistline, starting from the center back and the center front, I will measure and mark 4 inches like this. I will also measure and mark the 4 inches on the hip line like this. The dart will end 2 inches above the hip line. So I'll measure and mark the 2 inches. The dart will be 1 inch wide, half an inch on both sides of the 4 inch mark. I will now connect these points together to give me the shape of the waist dart. On the waistline at the center, I will measure and mark half an inch like this. It will end 2 inches above the hip line. I will now connect the 2 points together like this with my ruler using a slanted line like this. Next, I will add 1 inch zip allowance to the center back of the skirt pattern, making sure that I follow the slant at this upper part. I will now go ahead to cut out the back and the front straight skirt patterns. So now I have gone ahead to duplicate the front and the back skirt pattern pieces on another pattern paper. So I have 2 pattern pieces for the back and also 2 pattern pieces for the front. I will now go ahead and divide the 4 pattern pieces into 3 sections horizontally. I already have a division with the hip line, so what I will do is just go ahead to divide the remaining part into 2 sections like this. I will now number the sections like this. Now I'll go ahead to close the waist dart using my sellotape. Now I will pick 1 back pattern and 1 front pattern. These front and back pattern pieces will be the underlay pattern, which I will cut on the lining fabric. This 3rd section of the pattern will be cut out and discarded. These are the remaining 2 pattern pieces, the back and the front. I'll go ahead to label the center back and the center front on all the 3 sections before cutting them out. So now that I'm done cutting, I will now go ahead and divide all the pieces into 3 sections vertically, like this. I will also number the 3 sections. So I will slash and spread all the 6 pieces directly on my fabric. These 2 pieces are the underlay fabric, are the underlay pattern pieces, which I will cut on the lining fabric. I have here the 2 underlay pattern pieces, and I've already pinned them in place on the lining fabric, which is on fold. I use a fanny seam allowance all through, except for the side seam where I use 1.5 inches side allowance. I did not add any seam allowance to the center back because I already have 1 inch zip allowance at the center back. I will now go ahead to cut out the lining fabric using the underlay pattern pieces. The front piece will be cut on fold. I will now go ahead to notch the hip line on the lining, as this will help me to know where to place the second layer of flare on the lining fabric later on. These are the 3 front pieces. The center front will be cut to unfold, and I've already placed the fabric on fold. So the fabric is already on fold, as you can see, and this side is on fold. Using my paper scissors, I'll go ahead to slash the vertical slash lines which I've already drawn on the pattern piece. I will start with the first front pattern piece. I will slash, but I won't slash all the way through. I will pin the center front in place along the fold of the fabric like this. I will use 3 inches for the spread of the pattern. You can make it more than 3 inches if you want a fuller flare. I'll pin in place. So at the upper part, I will add half an inch seam allowance like this. I will use 1 inch seam allowance at the side. And 2.5 inches seam allowance at the hem. I'm using 2.5 inches seam allowance at the hem because the flare pieces have to overlap the next flare. I will now go ahead to slash and spread the remaining 2 front pieces. So now that has been done, and I've also gone ahead to add the necessary seam allowances. So I'll go ahead and cut out all the flare pieces for the front like this. So these are the 3 flare pieces for the front. These are the 3 pattern pieces for the back. I will now go ahead to slash and spread all the back pattern pieces and pin them to my fabric. I will also use the exact same seam allowance that I used for the front pieces and also 3 inches for the spread. The only difference this time around is that the back pieces will not be cut on fold like I did for the front pieces. I will now go ahead to cut out all the back flare pieces. I will notch the center back on all the 3 pieces so as to avoid confusion later on while sewing the pieces together. These 2 flare pieces are the 3rd flare sections of the front and the back skirt. Note that because this is the last flare section, the 2.5 inches seam allowance that are added at the hem of the skirt is not necessary. So this 2.5 inches is not needed. About 1 inch seam allowance should suffice for the hem of the skirt, unless we intend to slightly increase the length of the skirt, and this is what I intend to do. These are the 3 front flare pieces. And this is the front lining underlay piece. The 3 flare pieces will be fixed to the lining like this. And this is the back lining underlay, and the 3 flare layers will be fixed to the lining underlay like this. So these are all the flare pieces, and I've gone ahead to hem all the flare pieces. You can use an overlocker if you have an industrial 3-thread overlocker, but I have just gone ahead to hem mine. I have a detailed tutorial on my channel on how to sew a curved hem neatly. The link will be above and in the description box below. These are the 3 flare layers, and I've arranged them in such a way that the front and back flare layers are together. That is, the first flare section for the back is together with the first flare section for the front, and also the second and the 3rd layers. So I will pick up the first flare section for the back and the front. I will place the 2 back pieces on top of the front piece like this, lining up the side seam like this. Right sides are together. The center back side should be at the middle and not the side. I will now take it to my sewing machine and stitch in place using 1 inch seam allowance. I will repeat the same thing for all the other pieces as well. I will number the flare on the wrong side so that I know which is which. So I'm writing number 1 on this one. So now I have gone ahead to join the side seams together for all the pieces. At this point, you should overlock the raw edges at the inner part of the flare if you have an overlocker. These are the lining underlay pieces. I will now go ahead to place the two back pieces on top of the front piece like this, right side to right side. I will align the side seams like this. I will now go ahead to join the side seams together using 1.5 inches side seam allowance. The 1.5 inches is the side seam allowance that I used when I was cutting out the lining fabric. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I will now pick up the third flare piece. I will place it on top of the lining underlay like this, right side to right side. I will pin in place, making sure that the side seam lines match up. Once I'm done pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch in place using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now the stitching has been done. I will now go ahead to fix the second layer of flare on this line, which I have already drawn faithfully on the underlay fabric, and in this case the line is my hip line. I will now place the second layer of flare on this line, which I've already drawn faithfully on the underlay fabric like this. Right side will be together. I will pin in place. Once I'm done pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and stitch in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I left 1 inch opening at these two ends. I will now pick up the first flare layer and I will place it directly on the underlay fabric like this, with the right side facing up. I will align the waistline together like this and I will stitch in place using 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now the stitching has been done. My focus now will be at the center back of the skirt. So I will fold the skirt into two like this so that right sides are together. What I will do now is to locate and notch the point where I want the zip to end at the center back. And this should be around 8 inches from the waistline. I will now go ahead and stitch the lining pieces together using 1 inch seam allowance from the point that I notched down to the hem of the skirt. I'll make sure that I do not stitch the flare at the center back while doing this, just the lining. So now the stitching has been done. As you can see, I stitched from the end of the zip opening down to the hem of the skirt. But the second flare layer, the two pieces are still separate. So I'll flip the two flare pieces at the center back like this, such that right sides are together. I will stitch the two pieces in place using 1-inch sewing allowance. For this first flare, I will also flip the two ends together so the right sides are together, and I will also stitch from where the zip is meant to end all the way down to the hem of the flare. So by doing it this way, the flare pieces and the underlay lining will be separate from each other. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and as you can see, the flare pieces and the underlay lining piece are separate. So apart from the underlay lining piece, I've gone ahead to cut out another lining pieces using the underlay pattern pieces for both the back and the front. So aside from the underlay lining, I will also be using a separate lining to line the skirts. So I will place the two back pieces on top of the front piece like this, right side to right side, making sure that the side seams are lined properly. I will now go ahead to stitch in place using 1.5 inches side seam allowance on both sides. And this was the seam allowance that I used when cutting out the lining fabric. I will also hem the lower part of the lining piece. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I've joined the two side seams together and I've also hemmed the lower part of the lining. This is the bodice of the dress that I will fix the layer skirts to. I have a separate tutorial for the bodice of the dress. The link will be above and in the description box below. I will now go ahead to join the bodice and the skirts together, fabric to fabric and lining to lining. But first I will knock the center of the bodice, both the lining and the main fabric. I will also knock the center of the skirt at the waistline for both the lining and the main fabric as well. I will now go ahead and pin the skirts, the layer skirts, to the bodice, making sure that the center notch marks align with each other and right sides are together. I will pin in place, then I will take it to my sewing machine and stitch using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will also bring out the skirt lining. I will also pin the skirt lining to the bodice lining like this, making sure that the center seam lines match up and also the side seam lines match up. So if you are just making a skirt, this is the right time to fix the waistband to the skirt. So now the stitching has been done using 1/2 inch sewing allowance, and this is what the dress looks like. And this is what the wrong side of the dress looks like. I will now go ahead to fix this long zip to the center back of the dress. And this is the final look of the dress after fixing the zip. And that's it, guys. We are done. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, Share this video with your friends who are interested in sewing, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. See you in my next tutorial. Bye, and thank you so much for watching.